Hi, my name is John Mayer. I work with an organization called Volente, DV for short, and we're doing a couple series here about population, uh, countries, the population growth, and the significance of that for church planting and gospel and outreach. And so I just wanted to spend a few minutes here talking about this. Um, DV is a mission organization started a few years ago. It's headquartered here in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota. It serves as both an accelerator and an implementer for missions. We work with a number of mission partners all over the world, and we have missionaries in a number of countries. So, if you're interested, you can send us a chat, and we'll send you more information. But today's topic is just going to talk about the world population, how it's going to change in the next 30 years from 2021 or 2021 to 2050. And what does that look like? What are the implications? So I'm just going to spend a few minutes going through the top 10 countries today, and in the future, I'll do another video about the next top 10. So on your screen, there's probably some slides there. China's number one, India's number two, US is third in population, Indonesia's fourth, Pakistan is fifth, Brazil is sixth, Nigeria is seventh, Bangladesh is eighth, Russia is ninth, and Mexico is currently the 10th largest country in the world population wise. So, just a few observations. The top seven countries actually equal about 50% of the world's population, over 50%. So, these countries are highly significant just because of the number of people, souls. And then actually just the top six actually make up almost half, 49%. So again, a very high concentration. There's a little over 200 countries in the world. So the top six equal almost half, top seven equal more than half. A third of the people just in the world live in China and India alone. Just think about that. A third of the people on the planet live in two countries. And China, let's just talk about China for a minute. China has been the most populous single country, not an empire, but a country, for all of recorded human history. So, since the time that people took records, wrote, writing, and so forth. So, we can go back to records about 4,100 years ago, roughly 2100 BC. That's the time of Abraham in Genesis in the Bible. And since that time, we can deduce from the population and records and archaeology that China's been the largest populated country in the world. So it's been that way for a long time, over 4,000 years. It took China until 1980 to reach 1 billion people. And right before that, 1979, around that time, 79 to 2015, they instituted what they called the one child policy because they thought the population was growing too fast. And they basically favored men over women. So often the women were, if a child was born a woman, they would give her up for adoption or abort the baby or whatever. And then later in 2015 to 21, the last 6 years, they've had this two-child policy. From one child to two-child. And now, just this year, earlier this year, a couple months ago, they actually have added the three-child policy. And the reason they do this is because they were favoring men over women, and they had this limits on how many children you could have. It's actually distorted the population growth. So China's actually peaking in population. There's 40 million men currently alive in China that are never going to get married, never have someone to marry. There's just not enough women to marry 40 million men. So again, that's going to have great implications. So the government's trying to control the population. They're not doing a good job, and now the implications of that. So they're trying to catch up, trying to fix this over time. So India is catching up. India is growing, and in 4 to 5 years from now, around 2025, 2026, India is projected to pass up China as the most populous country on earth for the first time. So think about it. China's been ahead for 4,100 years. Now suddenly India is going to become number one in population. And I believe that's going to have a major effect on the whole world, a strong psychological effect on the Chinese, but also on the Indian cultures. And I believe India will pick up more momentum economically, politically, socially, uh, with this rise becoming number one in the world population. India is expected to continue to grow at this really rapid rate, where China is going to plateau and even decline in population. So from 2020 to 2050, India is going to add about 300 million new people to their country. Just think about that. That's about almost the entire population of America they're going to add in 30 years. So again, that's going to have a great effect on the world moving forward politically, economically, socially, but also for the gospel. Think about all the church planting we need to do there, all the unreached people groups and so forth. So India is projected to actually grow to 2 billion people within the next 80 years. By 2100, it's expected to hit 2 billion. And others predict that India will, when you go long-term predictions, they don't always work. So others predict around 2060, 62, India will top out at about 1.6 billion. Either way, India is going to grow very fast for the next 30, 40 years. And India is very strategic for outreach, church planting. Most of you know India has the most Hindus of any country, but India also has the third most Muslims of any country, and they have the second most mosques. India also has the most Sikhs, Jains, Zoroastrians, their world religions, of any other country. And then India has the most unreached people groups. So you put that all together, India is very significant for outreach church planting. Now, India does have the second most churches of any country in the world. They have about 880,000 churches, less than a million, but very close. But most of those are only 10 years old or less. They're mostly house churches. We have 625,000 new churches have started in India in the last 10 years. That's the most of any state or country. So again, India is on the move for the gospel, but also just looking ahead, we have to plant many, many more churches to reach all those new people. So let's talk briefly about the U.S. So the U.S. is third on the list, most populous in the world, and we're going to add about 60 million new people between 2020 and 2050, so about 2 million people a year will be added, some through immigration, some through just population growth. By 2042, what's that, 21 years from now, there will be no majority culture in America. Everyone will be a minority. So again, that's going to have a great change politically, socially, economically, and for the gospel and the church on America. So India is growing 5 times as fast as America is. So think about that. But America is also a strategic place for the gospel as well. The U.S. has the second most Jewish population of any country other than Israel, second most Jains other than India, third most Zoroastrians and Sikhs. The U.S. is also third for number of churches after China and India. But unlike China and India, where they're starting a lot of new small house churches and other churches, and there's church planting movements all over China and India, America in the last 10 years, we've only had a net growth of about 5,000 new churches. We planted many churches, but many died. So again, we need many more churches, especially with the immigrant communities, to reach America. They're actually going to surpass America. They're going to become the third largest country in the world by 2050. They're going to add about 215 million people. And so the U.S. has been the third largest country in the world for over 120 years, 40 years, I guess, since 1885. So again, that's going to probably affect Nigeria's outlook politically, socially, economically, but also for the gospel. So Nigeria is ranked number 5 for churches, but it also has the most Muslims in the world, or I'm sorry, in Africa, not in the world. So again, think about it's kind of 50-50 right now. It's about 50% Muslim, 50% Christian. So Nigeria, this war is waging between these two religions. So again, watch Nigeria. That'd be a key country to engage in. Another one, Indonesia. I've been to Indonesia, but not for a long time. But Indonesia is the largest Muslim country in the world, with currently about 237 million Muslims. About 12% of all the Muslims in the entire world live in Indonesia. And Indonesia is going to grow about the same rate as America. It's going to add about 55 million people between 2020 and 2050. It's currently the 4th largest country in the world population-wise, but it's going to move to 5th. As Nigeria moves up, Indonesia will fall behind one. And then Russia, which is currently the 9th largest country in the world, it's going to actually fall to 14th largest country by 2050. Russia's barely growing. It's pretty plateaued, or it probably will decline slightly. It'll level off and start to decline. So it's not going to grow a whole lot, and it's actually going to slip from 9th to 14th largest. And then Mexico is currently the 10th largest country in the world right now. And then again, Mexico will slip from 10th to 12th by 2050. And then 2 up-and-coming countries, they're not in the top 10 now, but they will be by 2050. The 2 up-and-coming countries are the Democratic Republic of Congo, we say DRC Congo, which is currently 16th in the world for population, but it's going to rise to number 9th largest country. And then, so it's going to pass up, all these other countries. And then Ethiopia, which is currently 12th, is going to swap places with Mexico, move to number 10th by 2050. So two large African countries growing and moving up in the top 10 by 2050, Ethiopia and the DRC Congo. So again, just think about the implications for all these things for church planting and outreach. And it's just been a brief look, just 10 minutes or so, looking at the top 10 countries with the largest populations, what's going to happen over the next 30 years, just a few implications to think about for church planting, outreach. And we like to do this again. We like to do part 2, look at the next top 10 countries and the population, how it's going to look in 2050. Because the top 20 countries alone is 70% of the world's population. So 10% of the countries roughly equal over 70% of the world's population. So they are significant. We want to look at what God's doing. And so join us next time as we look forward to connecting again with you, and just we want God to get the glory for all what He's doing. So thank you very much, and look forward to talking to you again soon.